Hey everyone, and welcome back to Ontario Cryptids. Today I have a story from Reddit that I have permission to share with you all. Trust me when I say this one is going to blow your mind. Speaking of which, if you have a story you would like to share, then forward your encounter stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. And if you guys are enjoying these encounter stories, then hit that like button and subscribe if you're new to my channel. Also, I want to continue to thank everyone who is currently subscribed to my channel. I truly appreciate it, and thank you so much for all your support. So guys, go grab your favorite beverage or snack and sit back and relax. Okay, so this story takes place January of 2019 in Western North Carolina near a small town called Sylvia. Okay, now interestingly enough, if you look at the map, check out the shape of this outline here of the town. It looks like a bird to me. The head is facing west with the feet right below it. It looks like it's grabbing something. The body's kind of fat with ginormous wings and a tail that's curved down. Almost looks like a fish. Anyways, just thought that was interesting. Don't know who else sees that, but let's get on with the story. This happened to me in January of 2019 in Western North Carolina around the small town of Sylvia. I was participating in a week-long program to get certified as a first responder for wilderness first aid and rescue. I'm studying to become a forester, and it is important to know how to keep people alive in the woods when things go wrong. There are two primary locations in the complex: a classroom with some bathrooms and a kitchen where we spend most of the day in a class and ate meals, and a group of one-room cabins on top of a steep hill directly north of the classrooms where we would sleep. An important thing to note about the cabins is the heating system. Each cabin has a small but powerful radiator in it that makes the cabin feel like a sauna if left on for too long. Since it was January in the Appalachians, it was pretty chilly outside at night, so the heat was needed. In order to strike a balance between boiling in our beds and getting hypothermia, we would turn on the radiator and leave a window open so that the warm and cold air could circulate and create a reasonable temperature. Don't get me about the waste of power. I didn't like it either. The radiator and the open window were at the front of the cabin next to the door, and my bed was directly across from the window. The incident happened on the 5th day, a Thursday, of my time there. My boyfriend and I, who was enrolled in the program with me, had settled down for the night in the cabin we shared with one other person. We had gone to sleep as normal and were sleeping soundly on two bunks that we had pushed together so that we could sleep next to each other. Sometime during the night, I was awoken by some shuffling on the other side of the room near the window. I heard my boyfriend say in a complaining voice, "Can't we close the window? I wake up feeling frozen." I woke up more and sat up in my bed groggily, about to answer him when I heard another voice say, "If we close the window, I'll get too hot and will wake up sweaty." I snapped awake and froze where I was sitting. The voice that had responded was my voice. There is something very strange and wrong in hearing your voice repeated back to you. In the dark, I looked down next to me where I saw my boyfriend sleeping soundly. At this point, a mortal dread had a tight grip on my chest, and I forced myself to not move or even blink. I was focused intently on the place near the window, fearful, anticipating more of my own words. I heard more shuffling outside the window, and my same words were repeated. If we close the window, it'll get too hot and we'll wake up sweaty. Followed quickly by my boyfriend's voice again. Can't we close this window? I wake up feeling frozen. Towards the end of the last repetition of my boyfriend's words, there seemed to be an unevenness in the enunciation, like raising and lowering the pitch slightly. I remained frozen in my bed, feeling my hand fall asleep in my propped up position. I sat there for what felt like 15 or 20 minutes, listening to whatever it was shuffling around in front of our window, separated from me by some odd 10 feet and window mesh. Eventually, the shuffling became more frequent, and a weird mumbling sound came from outside the window, with no real words being said, or none that I could make out. This particular behavior didn't last long before the shuffling sound moved to the left of the window to the door, where a scratching sound began to manifest. As the sound moved, I saw the silhouette of a medium-height 5'6" figure that moved in an uncanny way, like when a baby animal tries to walk for the first time but isn't quite strong enough to stand up correctly. It sounded like someone was scraping some dry sticks against the wood of the door, not aggressively, but kind of like an impatient dog asking to be let in. This scratching slowly moved around the cabin, stopping when it reached the wall that I was closest to. My ears were strained to hear anything that might indicate further action, but all I could hear were footsteps on dry leaves. The footsteps eventually moved away from the cabin and down the other side of the hill, and didn't return for the rest of the night. I stayed unmoving from my position for at least another half hour before my body readjusted itself slightly, letting the blood flow back in my asleep limbs. I was wide awake until my boyfriend's and other roommates' alarms went off sometime before dawn to get ready for the day, which felt like maybe 2 hours, but I couldn't be certain because I didn't have a clock. My boyfriend was surprised that I was awake before him, as I'm typically a later sleeper. But I just told him his alarm woke me up and tried to act somewhat normal. We got up and got ready for our day, but I refused to leave the cabin until the sun began to peek over the mountains. For the rest of the week, I was on edge and felt like there were eyes on me whenever it was relatively dark out, though I'm not sure how much of that was raw paranoia. In the day following the incident at night, I had realized the lines that were repeated to me by the voice were a part of a conversation that my boyfriend and I had earlier in the week. And I came to the conclusion that whatever it was had been outside our cabin and had heard us talking. This scared me a great deal, as I also realized that it had likely been lurking there in the following nights as well, without us realizing it, and might do so again for our remaining nights, though it ended up not coming back. I waited to tell my boyfriend about this until we had left the program because he scares easy and was already a little weary of walking in the woods at night up to the cabins. It should be noted that I know this is not to be a sleeping paralysis experience, as I have had them before and they were nothing like this. Not to mention, I was able to move. I am posting this here also as a means of asking for advice in addition to getting it off my chest, as this winter I will have to return to the same location to renew my certification. Expires 2 years after acquisition. And I want to know as much as I can so I can hopefully avoid another encounter. I know the entity of which this board is named is pinned on a lot of strange encounters, but I don't have a better idea of what it could be. If there is a similar entity that exists in my area, I'd be glad to hear about it and what I can do, if anything, to avoid it. Wow, great story. And like I promised, I told you this was going to blow your mind. It's just so unnerving to have or to listen to your own voice being repeated to you when you're not the one uttering the words. Oh my gosh, that would have totally freaked me out. But I'm not sure what I would have done in that situation, because one truly doesn't know until you're placed in that exact circumstances. But anyways, great story. Loved it immensely. And I was happy that I was allowed to share this with you. Some folks on Reddit have voiced that this entity could be a skinwalker. Now, I looked online and found that a blurb stating that skinwalker in the Navajo culture is a type of harmful witch who has the ability to turn into, possess, or disguise themselves as an animal. The term is never used for healers. Interesting. I also found that they can mimic animals or mimic human voices. So that is pretty interesting. So it clearly sounds like this, whatever this entity was, it actually wanted to get you outside. It wanted you to get up and go and look and see what was making or who was mimicking your voice. And I guess it was a good thing that you did not, that you stayed right where you were in your bed. So scary thoughts when you think about it. So I guess if when you go back next year, make sure if you come across that critter again, do not, whatever you do, do not go out and investigate to see what is calling you, because it's definitely a trap. Anyways, guys, if these stories reminded you of an encounter that you may have had and that you would like to share, then please forward your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. Your stories can be as anonymous as you would like, and I'd love to hear from you soon. So, have a fantastic Sunday, and we'll see you all next week.